Welcome to the Coaches Spotlight series on Fitlete Radio. My name is George Wagon III. Now let's meet our coach.
My name is David Skolnik. I am a doctor of physical therapy, a fitness coach, and an educator in both the rehab and fitness space. I primarily work with clients in the demographic of, let's say, 40 to 75. Most of them have some sort of minor, if not pretty significant, injury history. And they fall into that blank space that often exists between traditional physical therapy and rehab practices and what the average personal trainer can be expected to accomplish with someone with a bit of a complicated history. I've spent a lot of time in my career working specifically with older folks in geriatric settings. So I love working with folks who are a little bit older, showing them what they are capable of, training them like the athletes they may have been and still can be, and helping people live more enjoyable, fulfilling lives via the power of functional exercise.
While there might be many, take a moment to think about all you've done as a coach and tell me one of your favorite moments as a coach in your career or practice that you have. It doesn't have to be one specific person, place, or thing, but maybe some realization or reaffirming moment you experienced because you were someone's coach.
If I had to share one story, a recent story that confirmed to me that I am absolutely doing the right thing with my life, it would be the story of a current client who, over the last year to year and a half, has gone from monthly scheduled appointments with a pain management clinic to having a relationship with that clinic that amounts to saying, I'll call you if I need you, and realizing that his bad days now with his low back pain would have been his best days just over a year ago. And the story that comes to mind specifically is coming back from a trip to visit his grandkids who are 4 and 2, and realizing that he has an easier time carrying his 2-year-old around than he did when that grandkid was just 1 to 2 months old. Right. So instead of a 10-pound baby, he's now carrying a 35-pound toddler and finding it easier, right? Less painful, more enduring. It's easier to pick him up. It's easier to carry him for as long as he wants. And that's just like such an amazing feeling to know that I had some part in that, and that through the magical powers and science of exercise, we've given someone a greater quality of life.
To me, real coaches join the industry with the best intentions. Helping people is pretty much at the core of their mission. Over time and with some new experiences, some further learning, some of these beliefs, methods, techniques, and the general approaches to how we coach can change. No one's perfect when we start. Nobody has the perfect system, especially in the beginning. What's something you used to believe as a new coach, but no longer do, or no longer see as important in your practice as a coach?
Something I used to believe as a coach that I no longer subscribe to is that the barbell is an essential or unavoidable tool that every client needs to be competent with and should be a central part of everyone's training plan. I still believe that strength is, if not the most important, it is like 1B most important adaptations to pursue via training. But there are so many ways to accomplish physiological strength, and so many ways that strength shows up outside the gym that can be facilitated by training with dumbbells, with kettlebells, with machines, with cables, that I no longer feel any pressure to get any client, but certainly not every client, training with a barbell. The barbell is an incredible tool. Many of my clients do train with a barbell. I train with a barbell. That might mean landmine instead of back squat. But again, I used to feel that a lot of these other tools, especially things like kettlebells, or if I had seen landmine training 5, 6 years ago, I probably would have scoffed and seen it as like, just another gimmick, something on social media that's more um, designed for attention than actual adaptation. I really no longer feel that way. I truly believe in individual design as a coach. And so while we follow some strict principles about program design, sets, reps, rest, intensity, and so on, the actual route we take to get there, the tools we use, I no longer feel married to any of them. And particularly what has changed since earlier in my coaching career, especially when I was knee deep in competing and coaching powerlifting, I no longer feel that the barbell is superior to all other tools or that it has to be incorporated into every single client's training plan.
I've been a coach for about 15 years now, and I can tell you new clients, they come from anywhere, especially nowadays with so much exposure for a business being online and on social platforms. In my career as a personal trainer, I've encountered people in consults who are looking for help, but then say things like, I think I'll get a personal trainer when I'm in better shape. This used to really confuse me. How do you handle prospective clients who've reached out to you for help but don't feel or believe they're ready for your coaching yet?
So my answer to the question of how do you handle prospective clients who maybe don't feel ready or believe they are ready for your coaching yet might be a little bit different than others. I am a subscriber to the idea that the business of convincing people is the worst business to be in. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to educate people on the benefits of exercise or the benefits of the coach, uh, or help people understand maybe some logical fallacies in their ideas surrounding readiness for a coach or what a coach can do. To your example, George, how fit or healthy they need to be before they hire that coach. But I'm not going about it from the standpoint of if I don't convince you to work with me, then I have somehow failed. I'm going to come at it from the standpoint of let's dig a little deeper. What do you want exercise to help you accomplish? What are you currently unable to do? What are some parts of your life that you're not fully satisfied with that you believe would improve were you to be in better shape? Or should you choose to use structured fitness to improve these elements of your life? What have you done up to this point in an attempt to get better at those things? How have you used exercise in the past? And what kind of results have you gotten? And then maybe asking the questions of, what are your primary concerns about this client coach relationship? Do you feel that you might let me down if you're not capable of doing what I think you should be able to do? Because my programs are always going to be designed based on the individual. I'm not giving you a template that, client A could do when you're client G. So I don't really have any expectations of what a client is capable of until we go through an assessment. So maybe the assessment itself and then the education that follows about here are some areas where you're already quite competent, strengths, areas where we can just kind of immediately start into a maintenance phase in terms of those physical capacities. And here are some areas where you have the most room for improvement, how I would go about beginning to address those in ways that you will find that you are immediately successful at, appropriately challenging, but where you can be successful. And I will use kind of just a couple more of those probing questions and then a very thorough assessment to help the client come to the realization on their own that whatever reasons they had for thinking they weren't ready for a coach actually are not that accurate, and that working with me as their coach is something that they would actually like to start doing right away.
I think being a coach is really unique, and often the methods and systems we use are pretty specific to the person we're working with. We meet people who sit all across this range of being quote unquote bought into the process, and it doesn't always show itself in the initial stages of building a relationship between client and coach. When clients show some resistance to following your advice, how do you handle that situation?
When a client is resistant to following my advice, I'm going to default to assuming that it's actually probably my fault, not their fault. Something about the advice I'm giving isn't linking back to what they are hoping to get out of exercise in general or what they are hoping to get out of this coach client relationship. So, if they're resistant to certain exercises, certain intensities, certain volumes, certain training styles, I'm going to assume that they are not connecting the dots between what I am proposing and what they want to accomplish. So, to me, the best way to overcome that is, again, as a coach, to get curious, to ask, make sure that, really, to make sure that I'm clear on what they want exercise to do for them right now. Maybe that's changed over the first few months of working together. Maybe we've been working together for a long time and they've been good with this very consistent approach to training, but something has changed in their life, right? And I am not aware of it yet. And so when I make some sort of a change to their program, they're resistant for the first time ever. And so instead of getting frustrated, instead of thinking that this client is is being difficult, I'm going to assume that there's something that I'm not understanding. There's something getting lost in translation, and that with a couple specific questions, um, again, we will connect the dots between the decisions I'm making and the goals they have. And maybe what we discover is that their goals are still the same, but they just didn't quite see why the decision I was making was going to be the thing that moves them towards their goal. Or maybe their goals have changed. And so while what I had planned would have been great for a previous goal, this new goal that we had yet to discuss makes my coaching decisions uh, less accurate or less useful. So again, to circle all the way back, if a client is showing resistance to the advice or the decisions I'm making as a coach, my first response is going to be to get curious and figure out where's the disconnect between what I am proposing as a coach and what they are expecting as a client.
Simply because of the nature of what we do as coaches, we're going to meet and work with people at various stages in their personal lives and even careers. Without sacrificing a lot of the results, how do you help clients balance some of these really aspirational goals with other life priorities that might create roadblocks or bring conflict?
I really love taking a seasonal approach to training with my clients who are primarily general population or Gen Pop. And when I say seasonal, I'm thinking about from an athlete standpoint or for a traditional strength and conditioning standpoint, breaking the year into preseason, in season, postseason, off season, and defining, what do those things mean for the client? If they have gym specific goals, maybe there's an in season where we're just trying to pack on a lot of muscle. On the other hand, if they are an endurance mountain biker who has a racing season in the summer, then we have a little more cut and dried traditional strength and conditioning definition of in season for them. But I think breaking the year up into seasons, knowing that there are 1 to 2 primary goals or seasons we are training for, and then we are building a plan that has uh, variety in volume and intensity and exercise selection and intensity and all these other things. It helps the client zoom out a little bit so that, if they're going to travel for a week, we kind of already knew that was going to happen. It's easier to adjust because we're thinking on a 52-week schedule, not a 4-week schedule, right? A 1 week vacation when you're only thinking 4 weeks at a time, that's a 25% disruption in the plan. But a 1 week vacation when we're thinking 52 weeks at a time, right? 1 out of 52 is so much smaller than 1 out of 4. So that's one answer. And then the other thing I like to do with people is I love big aspirational long-term goals, right? The buzzword right now is longevity. It's the centenarian decathlon. It's training for my 80-year-old self. But when you're 27, training for your 80-year-old performance goals, you're not going to be able to stay disciplined or motivated for 53 consecutive years. So I like long-term thinking broken down into medium and short-term goals, right? The way you accomplish your goals for your 80-year-old self when you're 27 is by accomplishing your 27-year-old goals, your 28-year-old goals, your 29-year-old goals, and so on and so forth. So you stack enough consecutive winning years, and all of a sudden you have successful decades and you have a successful training life. And so that's how I help people balance the long-term aspirations with the medium and short-term kind of objective planning requirements.
I'm building Fitlete and the resource nexus for coaches and personal trainers to consistently preach a single message that continual learning is essential and it has compounding benefits for a lifelong career in this industry. What's one piece of valuable advice you give to aspiring coaches or coaches who have been in the game for a little bit but have stalled in their career?
This is a fantastic question, and I completely agree. I could not agree more that the thing that determines success for coaching is a combination of ongoing learning and then putting that knowledge into action, right? It's the application of what you learned over and over and over, seeing what works, seeing where the gaps still exist. Each time you fill in one hole, it's gonna show you where the light is kind of still coming through the roof, and you're gonna need to go over and start the process of patching the next hole. So what that leads to often with my students is the question of, now that I've taken your course, what should I take next? And the answer to me, because to have a career in fitness, to have a career as a coach, you need to make enough money to not need another job or an entirely different career. So my advice to coaches often is, what skills would make you more valuable to the clients you currently have? Or what are the questions or goals your clients are asking you to help them with that you don't feel as confident in as some other areas that you're helping your clients with, to avoid like the shiny object syndrome that might be an advanced kettlebell course when you're working with older folks, or to pursue a weekend spent deep diving or running gait mechanics when only 2 out of your 22 clients runs with any regularity. So it's this balance of pursuing knowledge that you are interested in, but primarily pursuing knowledge that your clients will benefit the most from, your current clients will benefit the most from, because only after your business is sustainable can you start to pursue um, alternatives, right? You have enough clients paying the bills. You're no longer working that second or third job. Now you want to start becoming more proficient in a new coaching skill set so you can work with a different or an additional client avatar. But again, until you're stable, that's really just a distraction and is only going to keep you kind of in this struggle that so many coaches find themselves in. So what I tell coaches, just to kind of summarize, is pursue the knowledge that will make you an even more valuable coach for the type of clients who are already coming to you asking for help. And only after you are stable in your career should you start to really look at expanding into more niche things and looking for different types of clients you can attract. But first, you just need to get really, really good at helping the clients you already have solve more complex problems.
That's all for this episode. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of this great info about yourself and what you do as a coach. I'm glad I got to know you a little bit more through this episode, and I'm glad some listeners got to know you for the very first time through this show. All your info is in the show notes, so anyone who's listening out there wants to stay in touch, please visit those show notes to find that information and reach out to them at any point. If you want to learn a little bit more about Fitlete and our resource nexus for coaches and personal trainers, visit fitlete.com. That's Fitlete.com. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.